Hi, my name is Bogdan Marin. You might remember me from such videos as the Learning Hub and Switches. Now I'm here to bring you the lab. I'm here in the BCIT Level 1 lab, bright and early, and I'm going to do some of the labs with you guys. You guys brought your lab books. I thought we might as well put them to use. So the first two labs I'm going to get on this video for you guys is DC meters and AC meters. So my lab book here, I'm looking at lab 1-1. So see if you guys can follow along here. The objective is to properly connect and correctly read a DC voltmeter and DC ammeter. Purpose: electricity cannot be seen until you're a journeyman, heard or smelled. For this reason, it is measured in terms of the effects it has on other things. In electrical metering equipment, the magnitude of such things is electrical voltage. Current and power may be measured by the effect electricity has on the meter itself. Electrical workers depend on these instruments to make informed diagnostic decisions about electrical circuits and equipment. Procedure. Study the power bench layout, identify the devices shown. I have studied this bench for many of times. Remember that your current flows to the load from negative to positive. So we talked about this, through the load negative positive, through your source positive negative. Okay, so we see a little circuit here on page 2. Okay, I got my filtered DC right here. I've got my DC ammeter, DC voltmeter. This side is my DC, this side is my AC. Okay, so I've got everything wired up here. I got my first wire going from, I'll just do it all over again for you guys, you know? So, I'm going to go from my source to my ammeter, from my ammeter to my cone heater, from my cone heater back to my source, and then voltmeter to source, just so you got your drawing here. So I made sure I went on the 2.5 amp scale and the 25 volt scale DC. When I turn this variable supply up and down, the power's not on yet, guys. I also got my safety glasses. Remember, at home when you're watching this video, you do not need safety glasses, but just saying. So when I turn this on, it's going to go real quick, and I only got on the 25 scale, so I don't want to punch it too hard. I want to go really slow. Okay, so turn the main breaker on, slowly adjust the DC power supply from 0 until the DC voltmeter reads value for each one. Okay, so I got a little table right here. Brought my calculator, but I don't think I'm going to need it here. I got it just in case. So let's turn this guy on. Remember, left-hand rule and turn away. As I turn this on, so I know you guys can't see, but my needles are moving the correct way. Now, if I were to turn this off and I were to screw this up by putting the polarities opposite on the ammeter, and I were to turn this back on, my needle goes the opposite way. So you gotta be really careful when you're using DC analog scales that you have the correct polarity, or else the needle lead goes backwards and will damage. So make sure you don't mess that up. If you do, in the beginning, you could slowly turn it up and see, but now I got it going correctly. For the record, I had it going correctly the first time. So I'm gonna take it to 5 volts. So I'm gonna look at my scale here for 5 volts, and I've got about 0.25 amps. 10 volts, I got about maybe 0.55. 15, I got 8.8. and so on. So I can record these values. Now, next part of this. Once you've recorded your measurements, turn the power stat to 0, so the potentiometer here, and turn the main breaker off. Main breaker off. Replace the 0.25 to 0.250. Okay, so this was my 0 to 25. Your voltmeter, again, your analog voltmeter, is set on different ranges. You can have it set on different ranges for more accurate measurements. If you're trying to measure 3 or 4 volts on a 250 scale, it's next to impossible to actually see that. You have to put it on an appropriate scale. So having different scales makes it easier to measure certain voltage values. Okay, now turn it till I get to 1 amp. 1 amp, I've got about 20 volts. Oh. It didn't tell me to change the ammeter, because how am I going to go to 5 amps on a 2.5 amp scale? Oh, BCIT. Let's put it to the 5 amp scale like they'd like here. Now let's turn it on. Maybe your lab's been updated and mine hasn't. Okay, so there's our 1 amp, and I got about 20 volts. 2 amps, I get about 40. 3 amps, I get about 60. 4 amps, 80. 5 amps, 100. Okay, and there's my cone heater up here. And yes, it is getting hot. I shouldn't have touched it. Okay, I'm going to shut this off. Now, observations and conclusion. I'm going to leave this with you guys. I want you guys to see what you observed from me doing this. I don't want to do it for you. And we'll have like a morning session or something with me, and I can go over some of your observations, and you guys can ask me if you have any questions. So next we're going to look at the AC one. Just give me a sec here quickly. All right, so we're doing the exact same thing, but now on the AC. So I'm going to disconnect everything here. I'm just trying to time myself to see. I only want 10-minute videos here, so I'm probably going to have to make this a 2-part video, but it's okay. So I'm going to my AC. Now, my AC, I don't have to worry about the positioning of positive, negative of my AC. My leads can go anywhere, and my meter will deflect the correct way. I'm not worried about that. So that's another perk of the AC. So I also have to remember to turn my operator switch at no load. So they want you to make sure it's off, no load. I have different supplies here. So I'm going to go to my AC, which is switch 2, the 0 to 140, which is right here, and go to my 0 to 5. Okay, 0 to 5 amps. Again to my cone heater. I'm going to go closer cone heater this time. Then my cone heater back to my source. And what volt scale should I be on? The 150. Now if you don't know what voltage you're going to read, always go on the highest scale possible. Again guys, this is an old school thing, go on the highest scale possible. The meter I bought like even 5 years ago, it's auto range. It just goes to the highest scale possible. It senses what voltage it is and puts it in the most accurate scale and gives it to you in a digital reading. So again, this is not something that you need to set on the job site usually because your meters already do that. But just remember that like we did have to do this. Sorry, I never had to do this. But in the past, this was done. So yeah, so make sure you always set to the highest setting if that's an option, if you're using an older meter, so make sure you double check that. Okay, now that I got this all hooked up, again, power's off. I am going to pause this before we get going because I don't want to go over my 10 minutes here. And you guys can tune in for part 2, and I'll have this, I'll have the results for this guy, and I'll start the next one. All right, so thanks for tuning in.